What is going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs of Rays, and today we're doing another Tiny Tina's Wonderlands video to bring to you, and these are going to be the 5 things that I wish I knew before starting Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Now, obviously over the course of the game, which I've got an easy like 20-30 hours already ploughed into this game already, it's a lot of fun. It's definitely taken my interest pretty much from the get-go, but honestly, the amount of stuff that actually I kind of wish I knew before I started to be able to go into my character creation, just from something as simple as that. The fact that you're not able to be able to even test a few things out before you get to the tutorial level just kind of means that you have to do a little bit of research beforehand, and it definitely pays dividends in the long run. Things like character backgrounds and you know, other things, knowing about how the healing mechanics, etc, etc. But we're going to get into the tips in a little while. Just make sure that you drop a like and a subscribe on the channel. It really does help the channel out, and we definitely will be bringing more Tiny Tina's content your way. If this one does really well, then we'll definitely do some more tutorial tips as to what else you should actually know, what else you should look out for before playing the game, and obviously just general help in just in general, I suppose. So without further ado, let's get straight into number 1, which are going to be talking about enchantments. So enchantments unlock at level 15, and to be fair, they are so superior and vast in nature. These work very similar to what we had in Borderlands 3, and the mechanic where some of them are able to be dropped and have additional effects depending on obviously what you get rolled with. Things that had like plus 300% damage when your target is above 90% health, or being able to have extra damage on the next few magazines when you after you use a certain action skill, things like that. But just keep those in mind. But obviously, not a lot of those have actually transferred across, because let's be honest, quite a lot of that would be broken in this game. So what they've done is they've pretty much overhauled, revamped everything that's going to come, and we have a bunch of stuff that's come through. There's so many that have actually come through, all affecting different things, affecting gun damage, melee damage, spell damage, all activating on different things, like activating on spell cast, activating on action skill cast, so many different things, and as long as you meet those conditions, then obviously you get that added benefit, and some of these can really make or break a build. So for example, if you were going for purely going for gun damage, like I am doing with my Clawbringer, you are able to get a stack so many things onto your spell, onto your shield, onto your gun that you've currently got equipped, onto your melee, etc, and it triggers most of these off at the exact same time as long as you meet those conditions. And there are, like I said, there are ones that actually do affect specific classes, and you can get these to drop. I believe I was playing as a Clawbringer and as a Berserker, and I was able to get one drop with the Berserker. I believe that's how it works. I haven't seen very many, those are very few and far between, but just know that you can actually get other classes apart from your main to be able to drop onto your character that you're playing at the time. So it's really important that you get the synergy right with these, especially when you go into those later on chaos levels, because otherwise you are going to really struggle, and it's definitely worth being able to re-roll any of the enchantments that you're not going to be using. So there is a machine that's over by the blacksmith if you've got through to the town, and you've also got into the chaos dungeons. You actually do have the machine right there ready to be able to use, but you can re-roll any of the enchantments that are on there. It does cost moon coins, which you will be picking up as you play the game, and also on top of that, if you have any legendary gear that you're playing to be able to use and they don't have any enchantments on them in the first place, you can actually roll an enchantment onto them. Just know that every subsequent roll that's on those will cost you more and more moon coins up to a certain limit. The second point to be able to be aware of before you go into this game, especially if you've come from other Borderlands titles, is the fact that there's no real type of damage leech when it comes to this game. So in the past, we've seen things like if you were sprinting, for example, like Moe's in Borderlands 3, and you were firing your gun and you hit an enemy, you were able to gain so much of that damage, a portion of it back as health. It's things like that. Unfortunately, we don't have anything like that when it comes to the class trees. And what instead we do have is you generate so much of your health over time. We do have that make a return due to some of the skill trees. We do also have some of the spells able to regenerate health as long as you stand inside of a dome. There's little things like that. Shields can do it as well, and you can get some decent health regen back that way, but obviously nowhere near as much as what we had in Borderlands titles. The main thing that we actually do have, the main mechanic that's going to be doing for healing, is going to be dark magic. So dark magic is a different type of element that's actually present in this game. We've never seen it before, and basically instead of it being like a normal status, what it will do is it will leech enemies, and a portion of that damage will come back to you as health. So that's going to be the main way to go. It's definitely worthwhile keeping something that has dark magic as an element on it, so you actually do have something to be able to fall back on just in case you are struggling a little bit survivability wise. Tip number 3 is that melee in this game is substantially stronger than previous Borderlands games, and not many people actually did use the melee skill. I think the last time we actually had a class that was similar to that was being able to play as the Psycho back in Borderlands 2. And that was an interesting mechanic. It definitely kind of worked, but in this one you can actually go specifically into classes to be able to boost up your melee. Now recently I have actually started experimenting with a melee only build. It's still in the early days. It definitely can mow its way through mobs. It definitely can give you enough healing back and enough damage reduction to actually stay in the fight. The only problem it has is when it comes to bosses, so I'm trying to find a way to be able to get around that, but rest assured, as soon as I do actually find a way, I will definitely be making a build for you. I'm experimenting currently with a Clawbringer. I have tried it out with a Berserker, in terms of Clawbringer Berserker. I have also tried it with a Clawbringer Stabbermancer. So some of these actually have some really great skill trees to be able to offer, and actually do combo really nicely when it comes to additional melee benefits. Remember to actually go back to Enchantments, and you can actually boost up your melee damage to Elites, and you can actually boost it up when you cast like spells and all that kind of thing. So there is a way to be able to do it. I just need to get a little bit lucky, and as soon as I've got the gear, I will definitely be bringing another video out to you. Loot chests in this game are not as prevalent in this game as previous games, and especially in the Borderlands kind of franchise. So we've seen things like green chests, we've seen things like red chests, all that kind of good stuff. Instead, what we actually do have in this one, while we do have things like red chests, we do have a few of them kicking around. They are very few and far between. So instead we have a new mechanic called Lucky Dice, which has been introduced and works similar to that of the dice chest from the Dragon's Keep DLC from obviously Borderlands 2 and Bunkers of Badasses, which obviously this then came from. So instead of being a regen, like a crate that after you've left for so long, you're actually able to regen and you can continuously farm for it, Lucky Dice are there just to be able to pick up as a one and done, and they will instead just leave like a yellow mark on the floor to be able to let you know that you have picked that one up from that specific location. What instead it actually offers for that is if you actually find a Lucky Dice, it will roll, it will give you a number, and it will give you loot depending on obviously the number that you've rolled, and then as soon as you've opened it, it will actually increase your luck ready for the next Lucky Dice that you find. So you can actually get legendaries out of these, and they work similar, like I said, they do work very similar to chests, but they are literally a one. Once opened, that's it, pretty much done. So just keep that in mind, but it's definitely worthwhile being able to find as many Lucky Dice as you actually can, and we have actually done a tutorial or a guide as to how to find the first 4, especially in that tutorial land, just to be able to get yourself started. And the last thing that we really need you to be able to keep an eye out for, or obviously wish I'd also knew, is that it's worthwhile looking into the classes before you start Tiny Tina's due to how set up the primary classes and the heritage of your character affects their initial stat. So for example, I wanted to be a Clawbringer. I loved the idea of going into a melee playstyle, and so I went for the character background of Village Idiot, and I'd already set myself up as a Clawbringer. Now Village Idiot sets you up for a little bit more strength, and obviously allows you to be able to do a bit more critical damage, which is obviously always a primary thing to be able to go out for, especially when you play Borderlands titles and farming bosses. But I wanted to be able to get that. I want to be able to get myself a little bit more vitality, stay in the fight and all that, but you can obviously that wouldn't necessarily work if you were planning to go into spell damage, and then you would probably pick up something like Failed Monks. So obviously there are different backgrounds depending on obviously what you're trying to do. There's things like action skill cooldown, there's spell damage, there's spell cooldown, there's obviously strength to be able to give yourself some extra critical hit damage, you're able to get critical chance, etc, etc. So it's definitely worthwhile planning out your build before you start, because we don't have access to the tutorial area to test a few things out before we can actually get into it and actually decide from there what we actually want to be able to do. And there we go, that's my quick 5 tips, 5 things that I wish I knew before starting Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. I hope this actually does get out to some of you, and I hope that you actually do take some of these on board, because it really will escalate your experience when you actually play Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. It will definitely take it to the next level, and it will save any kind of like frustrations you actually find when you've actually chose one class and you find out that your background's not really helping out, or you feel like you could have actually done it better if you'd started a different way a little bit further down the line. So thank you all so much for watching, thank you all so much for getting this far into the video. If you would love to know any more tips from myself, make sure you drop a comment in the comment section down below, and we'll definitely be picking up on those. And thank you all to the Babylonian family as always for their continued support, and as always, keep yourself safe, keep yourselves well, and I'll see you all on our next video.